Adrian Sinclair stood frozen in the doorway of the executive boardroom. Every member of the board had risen to their feet. At the head of the polished walnut table sat the woman Celeste had thrown out of the mansion less than 24 hours earlier. Lorraine Brooks no longer wore a maid's uniform. She wore an elegant charcoal gray pantsuit, a simple strand of pearls, and the quiet confidence of someone completely in control. The board secretary spoke first. "Madam Chair, the board is ready whenever you are." Celeste's voice trembled. "There has to be some mistake." Lorraine looked at her calmly. "There isn't." Adrian slowly turned toward Lorraine. You're the chairwoman?" Lorraine nodded. "I am." Silence settled over the room. Even the city's distant traffic seemed to disappear behind the floor-to-ceiling glass. Celeste forced a nervous laugh. "This isn't funny." Lorraine folded her hands. "I agree." She pressed a button on the conference table. The enormous screen behind her came to life. Corporate records appeared. Corporate ownership charts, voting shares, board resolutions. Finally, Lorraine's photograph appeared beside one title, Chairwoman of Sinclair Global Holdings. Celeste's face lost all color. "No." Adrian stared at the screen. "You never told me." "You never asked," Lorraine replied gently. One of the senior directors leaned forward. "Mrs. Brooks requested that her identity remain confidential while she evaluated the leadership culture inside the Sinclair estate." Celeste looked from one executive to another. "Evaluated?" Lorraine met her eyes. "Yes. The household often reflects the values of the people preparing to lead a company." Another uncomfortable silence followed. Adrian lowered his head. "You worked in my home?" Lorraine smiled softly. "I did, and I learned far more than I expected." Celeste stepped forward. "This is ridiculous. You tricked me." "No," Lorraine answered. "I simply gave you the opportunity to show me who you really were." The room became painfully quiet. If you've ever believed that the way someone treats employees says everything about their character, let us know in the comments. Your thoughts might surprise someone else watching. Lorraine picked up a thin black folder. "I've spent the past 6 weeks observing the household." Celeste interrupted. "You were spying on me." "I was observing everyone." She opened the folder. "I watched the butler stay late to help the kitchen staff. I watched the groundskeeper pay for another employee's medication. I watched Adrian thank every member of the staff after dinner each evening." Adrian looked surprised. "You noticed that?" "I notice everything." Lorraine slowly turned another page. "Unfortunately," she looked directly at Celeste, "I also documented repeated incidents of humiliation directed toward employees." Celeste swallowed hard. "I was under stress." Lorraine didn't respond. Instead, she pressed another button. The room lights dimmed. A video appeared on the massive screen. It showed Celeste throwing a stack of freshly folded towels onto the floor. Another clip followed, Celeste shouting at the chef because the soup wasn't hot enough. Another, mocking a gardener for speaking with an accent. Another, ordering a housekeeper to polish the same table 3 times simply because she wasn't satisfied. Every executive watched in complete silence. Adrian's jaw tightened. "I never saw any of this." Lorraine answered quietly. "That was the point." Celeste looked desperately around the room. "They're taking everything out of context." No one spoke. Then Lorraine closed the folder. "What you've seen today is only the beginning." Adrian frowned. You mean—" Lorraine's expression remained calm. "There is something else I discovered." She looked toward the company's chief legal officer, and I believe everyone here deserves to hear it.
The attorney slowly stood, carrying another sealed folder. Celeste's breathing became uneven. She recognized the seal on the envelope immediately, but she prayed no one else did.
The chief legal officer placed the sealed folder in front of Lorraine. Every eye in the boardroom followed it. Lorraine rested one hand on the envelope before looking directly at Celeste. "Before we open this, I'd like to ask you one simple question." Celeste forced herself to stand a little straighter. "What question?" "Is there anything you'd like to tell Adrian before someone else does?" Celeste shook her head almost instantly. "No." Lorraine waited another moment. "You're certain?" "I have nothing to hide." Lorraine gave a slow nod. "Very well." She slid the folder to the company's legal counsel. The attorney broke the seal and removed several documents. "As requested by the chairwoman, our legal department reviewed a series of financial and contractual communications concerning Miss Celeste Monroe." Adrian frowned. "What communications?" The attorney adjusted his glasses. "Over the past month, Miss Monroe contacted 2 separate law firms regarding revisions to the prenuptial agreement." Celeste immediately interrupted. "That's completely normal." "No one said it wasn't," Lorraine replied calmly. "The concern isn't that you requested revisions." She looked at the attorney. "Please continue." The attorney read from the report. "The proposed revisions would have transferred significant voting rights in Sinclair Global Holdings to Miss Monroe under specific marital conditions." Several directors exchanged uneasy glances. Adrian looked stunned. "You wanted voting rights?" Celeste swallowed. "It was only a proposal. You never mentioned it." "I was going to." "When?" She didn't answer. The silence said enough. Lorraine leaned back in her chair. "Marriage should be built on trust." She paused. "Not hidden negotiations." Celeste clenched her fists. "This is unfair." Lorraine remained composed. "Is it?" She pressed another button on the conference table. An email appeared on the large screen. It displayed a conversation between Celeste and one of the attorneys. A single sentence caught everyone's attention. "Once the wedding is over, he'll sign anything I put in front of him." The room fell silent. Adrian stared at the screen. His voice barely rose above a whisper. "You wrote that?" Celeste looked panicked. "It doesn't mean what it sounds like." "What does it mean?" She searched desperately for an answer. "I was angry." "You were planning." "No." Her voice echoed through the boardroom. The attorney quietly added another document to the display. "There is more." Lorraine nodded. "Please." The screen changed again. This time it showed expense reports from the mansion. Several pieces of expensive jewelry had disappeared over the previous weeks. Insurance claims had already been prepared. Celeste folded her arms. "What does that have to do with me?" The head of corporate security spoke for the first time. "Everything." He activated another video. The footage showed a hallway outside the master bedroom. Late at night, Celeste quietly entered the bedroom carrying a velvet jewelry case. Several minutes later, she exited without it. Another camera picked up Lorraine entering the room early the next morning to clean. Hours later, Celeste accused Lorraine of stealing the missing jewelry. Adrian remembered the incident immediately. "You told me Lorraine couldn't be trusted." Celeste's voice trembled. "I thought she took it." The security director shook his head. "The jewelry was recovered yesterday." He displayed another image. The missing necklace and bracelets had been found inside a locked storage compartment, accessible only through Celeste's private dressing room. Gasps filled the boardroom. Celeste's face turned pale. "I didn't put them there." "No?" Lorraine asked quietly. "The access log says otherwise." Celeste looked around the room, hoping someone would defend her. No one spoke, not even Adrian. He slowly removed his engagement ring. The movement was so quiet that only Lorraine noticed it first, then everyone else did.
If you've ever believed that honesty matters more than wealth, take a moment to like his video. Sometimes the smallest choices reveal the biggest truths. Adrian placed the ring gently on the conference table. I've spent months believing we were building a future together. Celeste's eyes filled with tears. We were. Were we? He looked at the legal documents. The woman I planned to marry wouldn't have hidden all of this. Celeste stepped towards him. Adrian, please! Before she could say another word, the boardroom doors opened. The executive assistant hurried inside, visibly shaken. Madam Chair. What is it? Lorraine asked. The assistant hesitated. The investigative team has arrived. Every director looked confused. Adrian frowned. What investigative team? Lorraine slowly stood. The team I asked to verify whether today's evidence was only the beginning, or whether something much bigger has been hiding in plain sight. Celeste felt her knees weaken. She knew exactly what they had come to investigate. The boardroom doors opened once again. 3 independent investigators walked in, carrying locked evidence cases and digital tablets. Without a word, they placed everything on the conference table. The lead investigator nodded respectfully toward Lorraine. Madam Chair, we've completed the review. Lorraine thanked him. Please share your findings. The room became so quiet that the faint hum of the air conditioning was the only sound. The investigator tapped his tablet. Our assignment was not to determine whether Ms. Celeste Monroe was guilty of a crime. It was to determine whether she had acted honestly while preparing to marry the future CEO of Sinclair Global Holdings. Adrian looked at him. And? The investigator took a deep breath. We discovered a pattern. A new presentation appeared on the screen. It showed dates, invoices, emails, and text messages. None of them alone seemed alarming. Together, they told a very different story. The investigator continued. Over the past 6 weeks, Ms. Celeste Monroe repeatedly instructed household employees to make unauthorized luxury purchases using temporary company accounts. Celeste immediately protested. Those expenses were approved. The company's chief financial officer shook his head. They were not. Another document appeared. Several invoices carried forged approval codes. Adrian's expression darkened. You forged executive authorizations? I never forged anything. The investigator calmly replied, the digital records show the approval credentials originated from a device registered exclusively to your private office. Celeste looked as though the floor had disappeared beneath her. She turned to Adrian. I can explain. He didn't answer. Instead, he asked the investigator one question. What's the total amount? The investigator glanced at his report. Just under $400,000. A murmur swept through the boardroom. Lorraine remained composed. This isn't about the money. She looked directly at Celeste. It's about integrity. Celeste's voice cracked. I was going to pay it back. When? Adrian asked quietly. After the wedding. His shoulders dropped. The answer hurt more than the amount. Lorraine slowly walked toward the panoramic windows overlooking the city. Without turning around, she spoke. My late brother built this company with one belief. Everyone listened. He used to say, money can recover from bad investments. A company rarely recovers from dishonest leadership. Adrian lowered his eyes. For the first time, he truly understood why Lorraine had chosen to work in the mansion without revealing who she was. She hadn't been testing the staff. She had been protecting the future of the company. Lorraine turned back toward the room. I hoped I'd discover a woman worthy of standing beside the next leader of this family. Her eyes met Celeste's. I truly wanted you to succeed. Celeste finally broke down. Tears streamed down her face. I loved Adrian. Lorraine answered gently. I believe part of you did." She paused. "But love without honesty eventually becomes ambition." The words landed harder than any accusation. Adrian slowly picked up the engagement ring from the table. For a brief second, Celeste smiled with hope. Then he closed his hand around it. "I'm ending our engagement." The room fell silent. Celeste's face crumpled. "No, please don't do this." "I have to." "You can't throw everything away over mistakes." Adrian's voice remained calm. "I'm ending this not because of one mistake." He looked at her sadly. "I'm ending it because every time you had a choice between kindness and control, you chose control. If you believe respect should never depend on someone's job title, leave a comment below. Every person deserves dignity, no matter what position they hold." Two security officers quietly approached. Neither touched Celeste. One simply said, "Miss Monroe, we'll escort you to collect your personal belongings." Celeste looked desperately at Adrian one last time. He couldn't meet his eyes. Without another word, she walked toward the door. Just before leaving, she stopped and turned toward Lorraine. "I'm sorry." Lorraine gave a small nod. "I hope one day you become the woman those words deserve." The doors closed. The boardroom remained silent. Then one of the senior directors smiled. "Madam Chair?" "What is it?" "I think the company just passed its most important test." Lorraine smiled faintly. "I believe so." But Adrian wasn't smiling. He couldn't stop thinking about something Lorraine had said the night before. "I hope you never regret today." He finally understood what she meant, and he had one more question that only Lorraine could answer.
The boardroom remained quiet after Celeste left. Adrian looked at Lorraine. "There's one thing I still don't understand." Lorraine smiled gently. "Ask." He took a slow breath. "Why did you choose to work as a maid?" Several board members exchanged curious glances. It was the question everyone had been wondering. Lorraine folded her hands on the table. "Because resumes reveal experience, financial statements reveal performance, but the way people treat those who can do nothing for them reveals their true character." No one spoke. She continued, "I've interviewed executives in private jets, negotiated billion-dollar mergers, and advised world-class CEOs. Yet I've learned more about a person's heart by watching how they speak to a server, a janitor, or a housekeeper." Adrian lowered his head. "I should have noticed what was happening." Lorraine shook her head. "You weren't cruel." "I wasn't paying attention. There's a difference." Those words stayed with him. The following morning, Adrian returned to the mansion. Instead of walking into his office, he gathered every employee in the grand living room. The chef, the butler, the gardeners, the chauffeurs, the housekeepers. Everyone stood quietly, unsure why they had been called together. Adrian faced them with sincere humility. "I owe every one of you an apology." The room fell silent. "I believed saying thank you was enough. It wasn't." He paused. "I should have made sure every person in this home felt respected and protected." Several employees exchanged emotional glances. Adrian continued, "From today forward, no employee will ever fear being humiliated for doing an honest day's work." The staff applauded softly. Lorraine watched from the back of the room with quiet pride. Over the next several weeks, meaningful changes swept through Sinclair Global Holdings. A confidential employee hotline was introduced. Leadership training focused on respect, accountability, and ethical decision-making became mandatory for every executive. Employee benefits were expanded, including scholarships for workers' children and enhanced health care coverage. The company wasn't simply becoming more profitable, it was becoming more compassionate. Months later, Adrian attended a charity gala supporting education and workforce development. Unlike the glamorous parties he once enjoyed, this event celebrated teachers, nurses, volunteers, and everyday people making a difference. While speaking with guests, he noticed a woman helping an elderly volunteer carry heavy boxes. She smiled warmly, thanked every staff member she passed, and treated the hotel employees with genuine kindness. She had no idea anyone was watching. Adrian smiled to himself. This time he wasn't impressed by elegance or expensive jewelry. He was impressed by character. Lorraine noticed his expression from across the room. She walked over with a knowing smile. "I see you've learned the lesson." Adrian chuckled. "I finally know what to look for." Lorraine nodded. "And what is that?" He looked toward the woman helping others. "Someone who treats every person with the same respect, whether they're a billionaire or the one